I'm going to start the stream. Should be streaming on YouTube, folks. So yeah, coming up in about 8 minutes. Got Dennis Spain here in Hawaii. Piers, I think, Garnham is struggling to get on Zoom. I don't know why. We'll try again. Booze has just turned up. And Charlotte Jamieson as well is coming along to have a chat, hopefully, from London. Chris, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good man. All right. Well, look, coming up in a few minutes, people. So, yeah, blimey. Bit of a funny old day, huh? Anyway, man down in 8 minutes. I wondered what happened to Charlotte Jamieson, and I just got a message on Messenger saying, sorry Ollie, neighbours are doing DIY. It sounds like they're demolishing the house and rebuilding it. The noise will probably go over my voice, just going round again to see if they are finishing soon. They didn't respond earlier. God bless you, Charlotte. Thank you. Coming up in 4 minutes, people. you can't make it today, Charlotte, no worries. We'll do this on Thursday if you like. That'd be great. And if you want to call in, folks, I've put the link in the comments on YouTube. Please do. I want to hear what people have got to say about Boris and various, what it means. Yeah, what it means in all sorts of different ways. So give us a shout. Tell us what you think, what it's all about, what it's going to mean. Yeah, all right. Hey folks, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good people. You're welcome, you're tuned into the Daily Chaos. Ordo ad chao. I'm Olly Connelly, thanks for turning up. And now, man down. As the British Prime Minister fights for his life and the country and geopolitics loses temporarily, we pray, a much-revered leader, the victim of a virus that at best was covered up by the Chinese state and possibly by the WHO and by relation by the UN. What are the implications for the world order in the longer term and for the UK immediately? We've got Dennis Spain in Hawaii with a stateside perspective and Brit Chris Boosey in California. Again, with, well, a bit of a mid-pond perspective, actually. And you! So give us a shout. Tell us what you got to say about this. So many different ways of looking at this pretty awful story, really, in many ways, it seems to me. All in all, you know, I'll just start by saying that this is a guy, Boris Johnson, who, quite frankly, in many ways, I don't trust to actually get Brexit done, and for the simple reason that he campaigned on the stump saying that he would get Brexit done by the end of January, and we are still in the EU, in the customs union, in the single market and in the ECJ, and therefore that wasn't truthful. Nonetheless, I would like to think that his heart was in the right place and that he was intending to get Brexit done truthfully by the end of the year, which is pretty much what it amounts to or should have amounted to. And now everything is up in the air. Quite aside from that, you know what? The guy's a human being. He's the sort of bloke, it seems to me, would be an awesome guy to have a drink down on, leaning up the bar with. And he's also got a pregnant partner who is also suffering from coronavirus. And so it's all very, very unfortunate indeed. Actually, pretty bloody awful. And wish Boris Johnson the very, very best and a speedy recovery, and want him back in number 10 as soon as possible. But only when he's recovered, because I wonder if he wasn't working a little bit too hard, getting a bit too stressed out, not getting enough rest, and that essentially was really why he was unable to knock this thing on the head. We were talking, you and I, Dennis Spain, a couple of weeks ago now, about how to boost the immune system and try and keep yourself in check with this bloody awful bug. It does seem to me that Boris Johnson has just pushed himself too hard, and that really is why he now is fighting for his life.
Yeah, in my on my website, I list a number of different things the ordinary person can do to keep their immune system strong. And one of them, of course, is keep yourself rested. And it sounds like, that wasn't possible with Boris Johnson.
Major stress. And
Major stress.
Quite the workaholic. Boosey, to be honest with you, mate, I saw him come out and clap the NHS on Wednesday. To me, he looked still virus-stricken. I'm not surprised at this. I am shocked, but I'm not surprised.
No, I think, he's done things, he hasn't really obeyed the protocols he's placed on others, shaking hands with victims of the virus in hospitals. He's kind of made it easier for himself to contract it. And, being a leader as in a crisis like this, it is going to be a pretty... you're going to be getting, 3 hours kip a night, if that, because there's going to be that much work that you're going to be working on. And honestly, that's just a recipe for disaster. However, I am going to say something, and you're probably going to keel over just for me saying it.
Go on.
Keir Starmer actually did something correct.
Who did?
Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer? Oh, yeah. Go on. What did he do?
The Labour mayor for Amber Valley.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, go on.
Basically made all sorts of
Horrid
vile
thing.
statements about how he deserved this, and basically hoping that he succumbed to it. And Keir Starmer said that said, we are not going to do this hateful type of politics anymore that was done under the last leadership. And he's taken the executive decision to completely expel her from the Labour Party.
Oh, has he?
Oh,
excellent.
He just went, no, she's gone. No kind of disciplinary, she's gone. So, in a situation like this, I would have to say that, a broken clock can be right twice a day. Keir Starmer has actually made a right decision for once and been quite...
Yeah, for once, has to be said, Haven't got any time for Keir Starmer whatsoever.
I
but
know,
nonetheless,
and this is why I'm kind of me giving credit to someone like Keir Starmer is,
yeah. No, I hear
you
you.
know,
I hear
it's
you,
put
Boosey.
by a lottery ticket time.
Let me just read that story. According to Guido, Labour lose their compassion. I assume that this is the story you're referring to, Boosey. Sheila Oakes, the
Yeah.
unity from every corner of Parliament and fellow world leaders following the news of Boris's deteriorating condition is refreshing. Though not everyone can seem to muster compassion upon hearing of the news of the PM being moved to intensive care, Labour Mayor and Derbyshire Councillor Sheila Oakes told Facebook to vent, "Sorry, he completely deserves this, and he is one of the worst PMs we've ever had." Few are buying her subsequent apology. Sheila wasn't the only one revelling in the poor health of the Prime Minister, so Guido thought would help the Labour Party's new leadership out by highlighting prominent left-wingers, some of whom may need cross-checking with the Labour membership list for bringing the party into disrepute. Riz Mokal says you have to have a heart of stone not to smile just a little bit. He's a UCL professor of legal theory. Harry, writer and author of multiple books, Harry Patterson, said Boris Johnson a life less honourable. I mean, you know what? I don't even want to continue reading this, but I did see on Twitter last night. Well, what is it? Maybe Dennis, you can give us your thoughts on this. What is it about the left? I really am not. I guess I am more inclined to, if you like, right-wing politics than left-wing politics. But actually, I would say I'm pretty much a centrist. I would say that I'm basically a liberal with a small L. And I would defend that, America, as well. And I hope that I have a variety of guests on this show from all thought sets, because I truly believe that only between us can we come up with good ideas. I don't think that anybody has got all the answers on any side. But I have to say that the left, when it comes to downright vindictiveness and horridness and viciousness, the left takes the biscuit, in my opinion. It really, I don't know. Am I being unfair, Dennis?
Well, one of my favorite statements is leftism is a thinking disease. And John Mark, who is has put out some excellent videos on YouTube, and his website is Mark My Words, has analyzed this quite a bit. And it seems like, and if, to make general statements about the left, they seem to be an envious lot.
Yeah.
And an unproductive lot. It's like in the United States now, the Democrats, see, I really don't like politics, but you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
In the United States, the left now, in the form of the Democrats, has just been obstructionist for 3 years. When Obama was president, I actually voted for Obama twice. I don't know why now, but I did. But in retrospect, I was very much opposed to a lot of his policies, but never once did I cheer on the destruction of his administration.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter with the left. Down through history, even the left has always been subversive and destructive to the ideals of civilization. I know that sounds really strange because the left presents itself as the savior of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually like Vladimir Putin's definition of conservatism, which is, he says, conservatism is, I'm paraphrasing him, conservatism does not prevent progress, but it does prevent backsliding and degradation. And I think that's where I stand on it now. As a 71-year-old man, I I was a card-carrying Democrat until 9/11, and then I started really looking at the world more realistically. And the left is great with redistribution, but it's not so great with production. It doesn't seem to recognize that before you can distribute the goods, you have to produce them.
I think a lot of people, when Obama was elected, didn't like it, didn't like the result. But on the other hand, I mean, I personally, I wasn't sure about the guy, but I did think it was an incredible and historic moment for the United States, and I put that on my Facebook page on that day. I remember, and hoped for the best, and my hopes were quickly dashed. I mean, the guy was just another warmongering, tosser. Frankly, I mean, look at what he did to Libya for crying out. Completely trashed the place.
He spoke in a very polished manner, and I guess
He
that's
did.
all you need in politics.
But compare
that's
that
why they hate
to
Donald Trump, because he just speaks off the cuff.
Well, yeah, and he's abrasive and all the rest of it. But I mean, I think that people gave Obama the benefit of the doubt that there weren't huge, if you like, demonstrations. The media was hopeful and all the rest of it throughout his entire presidency. Actually, well, I mean, the media clearly was globalist, and he was a globalist, and so it was not such a surprise. But the public were very, very patient. Kicked him out in the States. And then, conversely, the guy on the other side of the aisle or whatever, and actually isn't even on the other side of the aisle because he destroyed the GOP before he even became president. So really, you could argue a centrist as well. There has been nothing but animosity towards him throughout the entirety of his presidency, largely hijacking his presidency and democracy in the process. I just find it incredible that the left is... Sorry, Dennis, carry on. I'm going on.
That's all right. It's the left.
Where's the balance in these people?
Yeah, there's no balance. There's no balance. They honor political power as their god, in my opinion. And frankly, I want as much freedom as possible for all human beings. Yeah. And I see politicians worldwide as, the other day here in town, one of our local politicians was at the local farmer's market, and he was shutting down a non-essential vendor. I mean, suddenly all the politicians regard themselves as experts on everything. And in reality, most of them haven't had a real job.
And these people are just regular people. I mean, they're not even politicians. And yet they seem to get so damn spiteful. I mean, sure, that person that Boosey was referring to, that Keir Starmer thankfully kicked out of the Labour Party, and he should kick all of those people out of the Labour Party, in my opinion, that are in the Labour Party that are slating this man down Prime Minister. I mean, this guy is essentially the victim of this China flu. This flu, which has been covered up by a totalitarian state. Okay, let's get in. Go on. Let's get into that, Chris. Is this going to have geopolitical ramifications, or is it just going to be another, oh, you know what, let's just pretend it didn't happen and get on as soon as we can, business and globalist fascism as soon as we can get on with it?
I think this might be a bit of a breakwater, because really, all I've been hearing and from people is, even people who were like, oh, well, these things and blah, blah, blah about the Huawei, people who were like not really caring about it are now up in arms. I think what you're actually going to see is a big push, for example, within the conservative grassroots. And even you're hearing people who are elected members now talking, should we really be dealing with Huawei?
Yeah.
and
Damn right.
it's on the back, just off the back of this. So we there is a concern that this, because it hasn't, despite what some of the media try to say, it has not been discredited that this is a bioweapon.
No,
fully.
it hasn't.
Because
It absolutely
the
has
more-
not.
the more you-
and
the more you
we're
dig-
how on earth are we supposed to trust the official narrative that the mainstream, the fake stream media is telling us to believe in from a one-party state, for crying out loud,
Well,
that has
not-
concentration camps?
Well, not just that. The official narrative is that there was
I'm
an
annoyed.
intermediate
You know what?
horseshoe bat, from the wet markets in Wuhan.
Yeah.
Okay. The intermediate horseshoe bat is not found within 9,000 kilometers of Wuhan naturally. When they've gone and investigated in the Wuhan wet markets, there is no intermediate horseshoe bats available for sale. There are only two places where intermediate horseshoe bats have been are found because they've been tested on. One is the Wuhan Center for Disease Control, and the one place is Wuhan Institute of Virology. So the fact is, the only intermediate horseshoe bats that exist in Wuhan are the ones that have been tested on in the labs. This whole "it came from someone eating a bat" has now been completely discredited because there was nobody eating these bats because they were unavailable in the area in the epicenter. So if they're not available in the epicenter, it has to have come from the labs. That
Okay.
then means that the bioweapon gets more credibility. Now, what this means is, effectively, what we could now say
Yeah.
is this a bioweapon that is threatening the life of a NATO world leader?
Yeah, that's
is
right.
this a weapon of mass destruction that has been threatening the life of a NATO world leader? That then brings you into NATO Article 1 territory,
Go on.
i.e. nuke 'em, and which obviously I don't see that happening. But the thing is,
If one NATO state is
talking-
attacked, we are all attacked. That's Article
and
1. No?
and if you're attacked by a weapon of mass destruction, one NATO member will use a strategic nuclear weapon against the aggressor.
Yeah.
So but I don't see that we're going to go to that territory. But the strength, even in America, within the administration, the feeling is this is now that our closest ally has been attacked, and the effective political leader of the country that's our closest ally has been attacked. This has caused political Republicans' backs to become a lot. They're usually a bit weak-spined, but they're starting to get some rigidity to their spine about China on the back of this, even. So I can see we might actually get some of the your Mitch McConnells and the like, who aren't I forget the other guy's name, the Senate Majority Leader. They basically need
It's not Chuck Schumer, is it?
Sorry,
Chuck Schumer? Or
no.
you're talking about the
Republican.
GOP guy. I forgot his name. Sorry, Schumer's a Democrat, isn't he? Sorry. Carry on.
So they might actually start towing the party line a bit more off the back of this, and actually standing up to
you see, that's basically
Democrat
what it boils
Party,
down
which
to, isn't it?
I've got to be blunt. At the moment, you've got to say Democrat Party and the media.
They don't give a stuff.
They don't give
a
aid and
stuff.
comfort to the enemy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, China CNN. Yeah, I mean, the Chinese news network might as well be. There was Trump last night with his Corona press conference, which CNN are now boycotting, I think. And then this happens, and Boris is admitted into intensive care, is fighting for his life to all intents and purposes. And according to Nigel Farage, for example, who reckons that he has contacts in that hospital, Boris Johnson is very, very unwell, he said yesterday on the War Room with Steve Bannon. And CNN, with this is red hot news that one of the G7 leaders is stricken with this, as Chris says, potentially at least, possibly a Chinese bioweapon. CNN ignore Trump's opening address when he is talking about Boris and talking about this. They ignore it. They don't give a stuff. Instead of which, they've got one of their blokes, I don't know, what's his name, that Cuomo bloke, not the governor. It might be his brother or something, I don't know. He's a CNN reporter, he's a CNN crony, he's in his basement with his webcam or whatever, and they're talking to him instead, who's telling him, I don't know, he's run out of bog roll. It's just incredible.
And did you hear about NBC, who actually brought a CCP member into the White House briefing room?
I saw it.
And then Trump called her out immediately.
Yeah,
and she's
he did.
No, I'm not. And she actually.
He said, do you work for the state, for the Chinese state, didn't he? And she said, no. I work for a private network, news network. And then it's Raheem Kassam, I noticed, who outed this later. I saw it on his website or whatever. And he said, that's crap. That news organization, if you look at who owns the different slices, the different people that make up the ownership of the company, it's essentially 60% owned by the Chinese state. This journalist lied totally to Trump in his own house.
Well, not just that. If for her to be able to have that position,
how did she get in? How did she get into there?
Carrying party member.
How did she get in? How was she allowed in? A Chinese spy, you could argue. I'm sorry, but we're at war, aren't we? Are we? It feels like we're at war with China now. Dennis, am I being over the top? Am I being a bit dramatic?
I think you are.
Go on, tell me then. Tell me where do we stand geopolitically now?
First of all, it may very well be a bioengineered virus, a bioengineered flu virus. That may be true, and I think that we should possibly, we don't actually know for sure where this virus has come from. Mm-hmm. It could have come from Fort Detrick even, or from Winnipeg. These people, there's BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs all over the world. And I think that rather than beat the drums of war, the people of the planet need to question the very existence of these biowarfare labs and shut them down.
Mm. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. But the fact is, what we do know for sure, we're not certain of the source of this. Absolutely. Maybe it did come from ratty batty soup. Maybe it was an erroneous release from a biowarfare laboratory.
Right.
Maybe it was a malfeasant instance. We don't know. But what we do know is that the Chinese state covered up what was going on in Wuhan for about 2 months with the complicity of the World Health Organization, i.e. with the complicity essentially of the United Nations. What does that tell us about the world order and who we can and cannot trust? Dennis.
Yeah, well, it tells us we can't trust too many people.
It is a concern. But on the other hand, you're suggesting, and I have seen the concerns of people that wonder if this whole episode hasn't somehow been contrived by the United States somehow. Is there any validity in that argument?
And my gut instinct is that it's not been contrived by the United States, but I think there's all that we can do is propose hypotheses and then hopefully ferret out the truth at some point. My own particular opinion, based on just reading and listening and filtering information, is that this was inadvertently released from the Wuhan Virology Institute, as there have been other accidents there, according to, I think, Professor Francis Boyle. And so you have to really pick and choose who you listen to. I listen to Professor Francis Boyle, and also I listen to some of the contrarian epidemiologists who are maintaining that this has all been hyped and that this is a particularly bad flu. It may be bioengineered. It would be best just to let let people be free and let it run its course, as every flu season does. The only way that flus are extinguished ultimately is herd immunity.
Yeah.
So, it's so easy very easy. I don't support the Communist Party, actually, because it's the perfect example of leftist desire for power at all costs. Mm-hmm. The desire, it's leftism is a disease. This is the most virulent form of the disease. But I don't know what has happened in China. My supposition is they realized it was an inadvertent biological warfare release, and they did their best with draconian measures to contain it.
Without telling the rest of us how bloody serious it was.
That may very well be true.
Okay, let's take a few comments, and then we'll maybe pull up a few different angles and on this. Kat Gladstone is asking, who is this American guy? I came in a bit late. And we've got Dennis Spain here from Hawaii, who's a lovely
nobody.
Man who knows a bit. And he's just a regular guy, just like old Boosey, Chris Boosey in California, and me. Just regular people having a chat. And we don't know anything, nothing. And by the way, do you? And does anybody in the mainstream media know what's going on? I don't think so. And, one man's conspiracy theorist is another man's scholar. That's where we are these days. Nobody's got a bloody clue about much about anything. And if they reckon they do, they're probably asking for money. Sam JP. Go on. What's that, Dennis?
What I find strange is that in all of this, in the release of all this information about the COVID-19, I no longer hear anything about the regular flu or the regular pneumonia deaths. It's like
they're being lumped in with it, aren't they?
Didn't you hear?
Yeah, everything's being lumped in, and it's like we're creating a frenzy, which often leads to war.
Okay, we will come back to that. Are we leading to war? We will come straight back to that. But let me take a few comments first of all. Steve B is saying, I think Pelosi will be safe. Even this horrid virus won't go near that old hateful witch. Tanis, you're very rude, sir. Tanis,
I did actually joke about that. If I got a deadly strain of COVID, just ship me up to San Francisco, and I'll go give her a hug and a kiss.
Oh, yeah, very, very rude indeed. Very rude indeed. Amanda Rolson says, should see the rubbish items bought from China from the NHS. They are all falling to bits, or in fact are nothing but trash. Time to cut China and the EU out altogether. The CCP are twats. Also, it has to be said that those testing kits that they were selling Spain, only 30% of them worked. I think that, was it Romania or Ukraine, said that the testing kits that they bought from China, only 20% of them worked. Anyway, Kat Gladstone, I love an Olly rant. Cool, bless you, Kat. Amanda Robson also says they're from Asia. Many items are taken in. Kenneth Noel Corran says, research the adventures of Tintin in Wuhan and coronavirus circa 1936. Cheers, Kenneth. And thank you for not writing Latin for once, or Celtic, or Gaelic, or whatever it is you normally write, bloody hell, which I can never understand. Steve B, W.O., without Rodders. Yes, I agree. And Ollie rant is always good value. Yeah, no Rodders today. You know, Rodders has not been terribly well. And I've been a bit worried about him. But I do know that he's alive and kicking because he keeps sending me filthy memes on WhatsApp. So he is all right. I know that. But, you know, he's gone on the wagon, yeah? He's on the wagon. He's quit the booze. And, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything out of turn. He'd tell you himself. He already has been on here saying, and he'd like to knock it back. So I think, bless him, he's having a bit of a, you know, double whammy, actually, because he's not been terribly well. I don't know whether he's had the coronavirus.
Was this the gentleman that was on the...
Yeah, that's right, Dennis. Yeah, the Viscount.
Was this the same?
Viscounts and Davids.
Yeah, that was with it.
He's a good man, and he's a regular on here. He's one of my co-hosts, but he's not on at the moment. And he's welcome to come back when he likes. And old Piers too is a similar sort of deal. Anyway,
give him my best, please.
I will. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much. And these David Laddie says the parochial will hit the fan. I think. He used a different word to parochial. Amanda Rolfson says, I do not understand why they do not make an antibody from the immunity created by people who have already had this so-called disease and developed the antibodies against it. Well, I do know that they reckon just literally now, as pretty much today and the next few days, that there are going to be some good results, some useful results, rather, coming out of Porton Down, which is a major biowarfare laboratory in the UK. So we'll see what happens there. Steve B says Prime Minister Bozza should be given hydrochloroquine and zinc. It's safe when you know it's a bridge to destabilize oxygen in red blood cells. Imagine if it worked for the Prime Minister. Dagger to the deep state. Okay, now that is something we have to talk about. Dennis,
yes.
Hydroxychloroquine, which has got a quinine basis or something, which I understand is in tonic water from when you came on before. Well, I remember it from when I was a kid, and I used to have a sneaky, I don't know, gin and tonic from my parents' liquor, whatever, cupboard. Now that stuff, Trump's been pushing it. He's just had it rolled out, 25 million doses of it, as I understand, across the United States. The army bloke in his coronavirus press conference told me that a couple of nights ago. So that is, that's beginning to do something over in the States, isn't it? That stuff. But what about elsewhere? Because in the UK, for example, I understand that people have been very averse and the media has been dead set against it. So what's the backstory here, please, sir?
That's amazing. Now suddenly, you know, the media experts are now experts on allopathic medicine. Well,
they in fairness have been saying the same, or using the same sarcastic tone, if you like, against Trump.
Right.
So how do you square that circle?
Well, there's a very interesting interview that people should see between Rudy Giuliani and a New York doctor. His name is Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. And I think it's his YouTube video. That interview has gone viral. And he seems like a very, very knowledgeable and compassionate allopathic physician. And he recommends this cocktail of 3 drugs, and he gives the specific dosages: hydroxychloroquine plus zinc sulfate plus azithromycin, which is an antibacterial medicine, antibiotic. So I think that this cocktail is very useful, certainly in the later stages of the disease. But you know, it's interesting. In China, in the past 3,000 years, they've had something like 200 and hundreds of epidemics over the years, and they've developed lots of protocols using Chinese traditional medicine, which is my field. And if you go to my website, you'll see my particular prescriptions and my suggestions for catching the cold or the flu at the first sign of a cold and flu. The Chinese have always said that you must manage properly colds and flus at their very first outset. And if you go to my website, you'll see a lot of information on this. I'm not going to read it right now, but
no, thank you.
I'm using these protocols myself, and there's a lot of them you can do on your own. Some require the advice and counsel of a Chinese traditional herbalist, but there's a lot of things you can do on your own. At the very first sign, it's really important, because the Chinese say all the evils are ride on the coattails of wind, which is their metaphorical way of talking about infection.
They also say, "May you live in interesting times," and
well,
it's
we are doing that.
Ancient Chinese curse.
Yeah.
Steve B says, "This guy has a soothing voice." You do, actually, Dennis. Have you ever thought about being an ASMR artist? You.
What is an ASMR artist?
Okay, hold on a second. Let me see what is ASMR. Oh, quick, go around the houses a wee bit here, yeah. Because you know what, we gotta, blimey, all this stuff is such a head. Whatever. So it's nice to think about something else, isn't it? ASMR. What does ASMR stand for? Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And so if you
that's what I want to be in life.
Yeah. If you go to,
you're actually talking to a very advanced AI robot here.
Thank you.
It's the HAL 3000.
Well, Yeah, HAL 3. Oh no. If you put it into YouTube ASMR, you get all these people, and they're talking like this. They're whoa, and they're very they're whispering. They whisper, and then they play with things. They just go all this silly stuff, and make little noises like. And everybody goes, oh, and get really excited. But the thing is, it's really soothing. It's really, really meditative, and a lot of it is actually quite cool. And you have a voice for it, sir. Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know.
So anyway, but some of these ASMR artists, though, a lot of them are young ladies, who like to bring their dress down as low as they possibly can without baring their nipples, on YouTube. And it's like, come off it. Let's face it. You talk about selling the lowest common denominator when all the people want is to have a nice, soothing kind of something to put on.
I don't think that technique would work for me.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't work for you, sir. It wouldn't work for you. Right. Okay. So I'll take another couple of comments before we get back to are we being led to war? I think was the big question there. William Davies, Ollie, could you or tell if there is 5G, sorry, in number 10? If so, it's possibly how Boris has been hit. Dangerous stuff. William, I've got no idea, mate. I've got no idea. This whole 5G thing, I don't know. I mean, they don't have 5G rolled out in Africa, do they? And Africa is succumbing badly in places like South Africa now to coronavirus. I'm not sure that they do in Iran, do they? Iran is hugely hit.
I don't think they've put in the infrastructure for 5G.
Boosey, you tell me. I'm not saying that 5G is safe. I understand the whole concept. Well, no, I don't. I understand some of the concept behind microwave weapons and ovens. I wouldn't like to sit in a microwave oven when it's on. But And I know that I understand. I'm not belittling it. I understand that these 5G towers are extraordinarily powerful, and that potentially can be used in a dangerous way. But on the other hand, it just seems to me, maybe I'm being very naive, and that's very possible, yeah. But it just seems to me a little bit fantastical that this coronavirus is what's being created. This virus is being created not necessarily, or the effects of this virus are being created not necessarily from the virus, but from 5G, or that is being used to exacerbate the effects of the virus. Chris, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Having worked with radio equipment and communication stuff,
Chris is
I know
ex-military
that there is an issue.
intelligence.
There is an issue. Yeah, there is obviously non-ionizing radiation, which 5G is within the spectrum, which would have non-ionizing radiation. However, it's not gamma or anything like that. Or any of those kind of waves that would normally be associated with radiation sickness. I'm not personally. I'm not. I don't know a lot about the research behind it. Some people try and push me towards looking at it, and to be honest, I'm looking at various other things, and I've got too much on to start researching into this as well. But I'm not wholly sold on it being a thing. I do think that there is with powerful when you have the part of the biggest problem I see with 5G is as you get higher up the frequency spectrum, the distance that those waves can travel, and the amount they can be hindered by various things like trees and stuff like that actually gets worse. So,
that's
for
why
example,
they've been cutting down the trees.
Works, if you're in a densely wooded field, HF is going to work better for you than UHF, just because you're going to get your signal through.
That's why they've been chopping down the trees in city centres around the UK.
That's what I'm saying. So, put 5G is going to need to have stronger masts to send the signal out, and going to need more of them because of where it fits on the frequency spectrum.
And there's loads
because because of the frequency. But maybe there's an issue with too much, and too many waves in one space. Too much power behind the waves and it being concentrated. I'm not wholly sure. I do know that if you work with radio waves, you do kind of become attuned a bit like an antenna. As my party trick used to be sticking my finger in an old analog TV and making like John Travolta and being able to tune in the TV. When I was working with radio waves, because I was quite attuned.
Is that why you lost all your hair?
But yeah, it's...
Oh no, you've still got your hair. No, you've still got your hair. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
There is, I'm personally, I don't know what the science is that the leaps that are being made from this. So specifically, I know that a lot of people are concerned, but I'm not sure how much is just about the fact that the word radiation is being used, and whether it's down to people just seeing radiation and thinking we're being baked.
So my concern, if I may interrupt here,
please do.
My concern is that it revolves around the purpose of 5G. Why 5G? I guess because we need more information about everything. Eventually, that will culminate in a society in which every movement of every person is tracked cataloged, diced, analyzed.
Yeah. I don't
Is
see.
that
I
where
don't
we
think
really
do.
want to go?
Do we need it? I don't think we need 5G.
Well,
I don't think we do either.
That's 5G.
Why?
You know,
Why?
because
why?
it's needed for the Internet of Things. You know, when you
Oh,
chip everything
yeah.
with microchips, RFID microchips for your car, your refrigerator, your washing machine, it's a method of collecting vast amounts of data, which are then analyzed. Are then analyzed by the powers that be, whether they're corporate powers that be or political powers that be.
It can
And
be.
the purpose is to surveil the population for whatever reason. Well, I don't want to be any more surveilled.
That's how it can be misused, Dennis. Sure, but on the other hand,
you think it won't be misused?
Well, it will be, because look at how
Yeah.
the internet is. I mean, look at Google and
Exactly.
Facebook. What is it? Fedbook and all of it. I mean, all of it. They're just a joke. We know that they're going to use it against us. And I personally would prefer for there not to be a 5G rollout for precisely that reason. However, on the other hand, there are going to be advantages to 5G, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, if you don't want to be asked to drive your car, then which personally I'm going to miss because I like driving. But then I guess, for example, 5G would be quite useful because it will probably be a bit safer to drive, provided you can skip the microwaves, I suppose.
See, everything. You know, we relinquish for security. We relinquish our freedoms.
Wasn't there a quote about that?
I'm not the first person who's.
Well, you've got Ben Franklin.
Yes.
Those who trade safety for liberty will get neither.
And that's exactly what I object to about these lockdowns, to be frank. Ron Paul, one of my heroes, has a program called The Liberty Report, and he offers a lot of good insights. He said that, perhaps, and also some contrarian epidemiologists say the same thing. Let this thing run its course, and don't try to lock down people, which may have side effects which are worse, or may destroy civilization, or who knows where it will lead. This is not the bubonic plague.
That's what Boris wanted to do, wasn't it, Dennis? He wanted, and Trump too. They were both kind of seemed. Trump still is keen on the herd immunity type theory, which is why in the States, I suppose, well, I don't know. No, it's different because it's a federal system as well. So it's kind of up to the governors, I suppose. But I don't know. The problem with that, though, I guess we're going to know soon with what's going on in Sweden as to the effectiveness of that strategy, because they are pursuing that now, the herd immunity system. Yes. But the danger, is it not, is that we really, really do lose the older generation.
But you lose
pretty damn quick.
I'm not denying that. But in every flu season, that's why I find it interesting that we don't see the regular flu statistics anymore. There was from pneumonia deaths in 1917. That's the latest statistic I found on CDC. There were about 50,000 deaths in the United States from pneumonia. It's these other figures are being
downplayed.
Hidden.
Yeah, that's
downplayed.
right.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Well, you guys, you were on to English before I was.
I wrote this story. This CDC, Center for Disease Control in the States, a stateside agency, kind of like a mini WHO or whatever. They, and equally corrupt, it seems to me. they put out an alert the other day on the 22nd or 4th of March, something like that, saying how people, if there was any doubt that coronavirus was part and parcel with somebody dying, it should be included as at least a contributory factor on the death certificate. And then they also said, if you're not sure how the person died, then, we have the autopsy, whatever, afterwards, if there's time. and depending on the masses, I suppose. But and then if it's realised that coronavirus, COVID-19 or whatever had no factor in the death, well, you know what? We're not going to change the original mortality stats anyway. They will be based on what's put on the death certificate. In other words, if there's any doubt and you're not sure, you can assume that COVID-19 was a factor. And then when we see these stats behind me, which are all bunk, by the way, I've only got it there because it's a set, if you like. It's all rubbish. It's all of that is a lot of old cock. Nobody knows the correct stats. And the CDC has proven it. We know that from China that the stats are toss because they're not doing any tests. They stopped testing because that was a way for them to pretend that there were no more cases. And aren't they brilliant? There's communist, bunch of in the Politburo, and so on and so forth. And so then we got the dodgy tests here and there and all the rest of it. We know that yes, it could be a contributory factor. But getting towards the end of my rant, the question really, Dennis, is no. I mean, it's just agreeing with you, really. I mean, it's just a joke, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Could I drop 3 names here on epidemiologists who offer a more scientific and more reasonable response to this?
Go on, please.
Yeah. Okay. I've watched videos on YouTube by Knut Witkowski, and also by Wolfgang Wodark, and then another epidemiologist, Sucharit Bhakti. All 3 are from Germany, I think.
Knut Witkowski, Wolfgang
Wodark, Wodarg.
W-O
D-R-A-R-G. W-O-D-A-R-G. That's his last name.
Right.
Witkowski, W-I-T-T-K-O-W-S-K-I.
Got it.
And then another man by the name, he's an Indian man or an East Asian man, Sucharit Bhakti. He works in Germany, though. B-H-A-K-T-I. These men they've collectively, they probably have about 90 years of epidemiological experience. It's very difficult. Biomedical statistics is a very difficult field to accurately convey. And these people do a great job of it. They're experts. And so I'd recommend that people just check the YouTube videos by these 3 scientists out.
This
they
is the
offer
problem,
a different
isn't
perspective
it?
than you get from the MSM.
We don't know what to believe. It's all very, and we're seeing this massaging of the figures, and the MSM seems to be playing.
I feel jerked around, to be frank.
Yeah. Which brings us back
by the leftist-leaning media, because frankly, leftism, desires political power at all costs. You can throw ethics out entirely, in my opinion, when you're dealing with the left.
Well, Dennis, when you think about leftists, you've got to think about the progressive movement, and one of their kind of stereotypical figures is Franklin Roosevelt, who effectively ruled America by fiat. And it's a reason why we have term limits for presidents.
Explain that.
Woodrow Wilson is my favorite progressive president. Under his watch, we got into World War I when he said we wouldn't. We passed the 1913 law that brought into existence the Federal Reserve, which, in my opinion, along with the CIA, are the 2 most evil agencies on the face of the earth.
Yeah. Well, I did a paper on the progressives for my American politics class, which really put some cats amongst the pigeons, because I was doing I actually did racism within progressivism, an inconvenient truth, and that
Because
and the
the
fact
love
that
of power.
yeah, well, exactly, it's like the entire basis for Lyndon B. Johnson bringing in, as he referred to it, and I'm going to it was the N bill, as he referred to it, which was the Civil Rights Act of 57, um, before the Civil Rights Act of 64 later. That was brought in purely to garner votes. It wasn't brought, these different rules were not brought in because they actually wanted to improve civil liberties, improve civil rights. They weren't brought in just to garner votes. And you look at it. I think it was Wilson that basically was the one that actually, as a quote, criticized the framers and their libertarian small state
Yes.
thing. And he basically more or less referred to them as effectively say their governmental reach has been effectively like a cop coming to you afterwards and going, now, don't do that again afterwards. And basically that's about as far as it goes. And, the
Well, this latest
the
pandemic.
left hates the left goes on about how it supports liberty, but they talk about collective liberty. They absolutely oppose any form of personal liberty.
Yeah.
I want to just take a few comments, then ask a little bit about more how this possibly could go to war and study that just a wee bit more. But first of all, just a few comments. Eightful Pint points out Sheffield chopping all trees down, and that is to let these microwaves get through or whatever. Miss Patriot 74 is asking, can someone explain 5G, please? I thought it was non-ionizing radiation. Miss Patriot 74, we're not going to do that on the show today, but I'll tell you what. It's about time I did another show with somebody like Mark Steele, who was a cracking guest who frightened the life out of me when he came on Daily Brexit about nearly a year ago probably now. But if anybody wants to help me book somebody or other to discuss 5G specifically, then I'll be very, very interested. Thank you. Please do it. Amanda Rolfson, I think that the 4 and 5G are weakening the immune system. Therefore, possibly, they are inadvertently helping one another. Weakening of the immune system means the more susceptible to illnesses. Yes. Stuart Firth, commercial 5G is presently active in South Africa and to a limited extent in Lesotho. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for clarifying that with me. But I wonder if it's in the shanty towns. I kind of doubt. I don't know. Maybe it is. Gina Collins, but it's non-ionizing, referring to 5G. Gerald Collins, are you in Sheffield? 8-4 pint. I have relatives there. And smile. Listen to Barry Trower on 5G on YouTube. Smile. Get Barry Trower on this show for me, please. I'd be love to find out a lot more about it and to get put right where I need to be put right. Steve B says he is surprised even when BBC News reported how Chinese people are tracked with their every move. Carlos is explaining something about 5G, which looks very technical and I don't understand. Sam JP, so why did David Icke's 5G video get taken down by YouTube yesterday? Claimed as a conspiracy theory. People are not allowed to even discuss it if it was safe.
Of course not. That's a hallmark of the left. They limit expression.
That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I did hear that video was taken down, Sam JP. I saw that. The downliner, yet they can't even locate Ghislaine Maxwell. Steve B.
People are waking up.
This
not good
lot
for
are.
politicians.
This lot are probably a lot more awake than I am. Steve B. I like my old Nokia phone. Not going to upgrade. Thank you very much. Yeah. Stuart Firth, Patriot 74. 5G is the term used to describe the next generation of mobile networks beyond. And it was designed, says Smile, as a military weapon of war. There's an incredible video from a former Navy character talking about how dangerous microwaves can be and how that's why 5G should concern us. Gerald Collins, aren't they clamping down on what they consider to be conspiracy theories? Who decides what they are? You know what? Okay, that brings us in pretty much to this big question about where this is going and how this can all be used, because I completely agree. How do you define? I was told yesterday in the comments, or it was suggested to me by somebody who listens to this show, that I kind of denigrate conspiracy theories or conspiracy theorists. And I don't. Not at all. I mean, if I talk about conspiracy theories personally, it's because, you know what?
You wouldn't have me on your show.
I know what these words mean. And I theorize about everything all the time. And I do know that people conspire. The fact that I put those things together doesn't make me what the media call a conspiracy theorist. It makes me a conspiracy theorist. I theorize about conspiracies because there's a lot of theories to theorize about. I think that we need to, take back our language and say we refuse to have the language, our wonderful language, perverted by Americans like Dennis Spain.
Yes. May I say something here?
And the mainstream media. Sorry, go on, Dennis. Here. Go on, please.
One of my favorite statements I often make on my Facebook page is, by the subversion of words, we are subverted. And it's so true. We start using, there's nothing wrong with theorizing.
No. Blimey.
especially when there's no actual facts being put out. You need to theorize.
Is it? I don't think that the mainstream media is any different.
Not at all. Not at all.
I really don't.
They
are, because they deliberately lie. The whole Russians narrative is a classic example. But nonetheless, they are giving us theories. They just happen to be,
approved.
They're giving us lies, actually. No, they're giving us lies.
Yeah. It's newspeak.
Yes, exactly.
Spin.
And that's the scary thing, isn't it? It's newspeak, an approved language. This is 1980. The media acts like it's 1984, and I don't mean a couple of decades ago. I mean Orwellian.
Yes. When did Orwell write that book? In 1949, right?
Yeah.
About then, yeah. Are they taking us to war?
I think there's already a war going on, but it's more of a clandestine war. And I think it's a war between freedom-loving peoples and the deep state, the global deep state. It's not like there's no such thing as an individual country's deep state, because the globalists are the deep state.
Yeah, I agree. And that war's been going on for decades, hasn't it? I mean, you could argue, for example, Dennis, what's your take on this? We had
thank you so much, because I have a take on it for sure.
Well, let me.
I think I think that the United States was sold out in 1913 with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, and I think the coup de grace was delivered on November 22nd, 1963.
And that was when JFK was assassinated.
Yes.
And yes, and
Can I make a
it,
plug for my Can I make a plug for my website?
yes, of course you can. Please, the
Thank you,
longest
because
domain name in history. Please
yes,
do.
because there, until 2001, I was so clueless about everything. It's embarrassing. But since then, I've made an extended effort to really try to find out things about economics and politics. And I'm certainly not an expert, but look where the experts have led us, for Christ's sakes. It's ridiculous. So my website offers two things. It offers a lot of practical suggestions on how people can protect themselves from this latest pandemic, this latest flu. But it also offers a beginning discussion on how we can wrest control of our monetary systems back from the hands of the 0.1% financier class. And so there is on this website, there is my proposed constitutional amendment for doing just that. One out of 10,000 people really understands the monetary system, and I'm still struggling to understand it myself. But that is the heart of the dragon, because we're nothing more than glorified serfs. And the website it's a long name. It's no spaces. It's taken from a Roman senator or some Roman philosopher. Let justice prevail, though the heavens fall.com. Thanks, Olly, for letting me do that.
Not at all. Not at all. It's the most ridiculously long domain name. Well, I've just put it in the comments, and I hope I got the spelling right. Let me just let justice prevail, though the heavens fall.
Fall. Yeah. And no spaces.
And no spaces.com. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question then regarding this. Another aspect of this, and I completely hear what you say about the day, I guess, America lost its innocence with the assassination of JFK, and then the next, and the Fed, absolutely, in 1913, and then following on from that, it seems to me that the next big event, there are one or two, but perhaps the most pertinent one for our times right now today, is when Henry Kissinger took Richard Nixon, President Nixon, over to China to love up the Chinese and get in with, I suppose it was Mao then, was it? And basically build that relationship, and subsequent to that, let the Chinese Pandora's box wide open to now, a time when we continue to see over there a one-party state who, you could argue that they are the most powerful state in the world, because they are joined up politically for all the wrong reasons, in a way that the United States is not. Because look at the duplicity from everybody that, I don't know, the deep state, the globalists, I think as Boosey was saying, and I would completely go with this, do not want that they would sell their grandmothers to earn a few quid in a trade deal with the Chinese or whatever, some dodgy trade deal, as opposed to the one that maybe Trump's just put into effect a few days ago.
It's important to understand, though, there's how this came about, and I don't think most people do. In 1971, Nixon rescinded the gold standard, or the gold exchange standard, and since then the dollar has been in a free floating, so to speak. But when this happens, when currency is only created as debt to a bogus debt to a financier class, there's no break on the expansion of the currency. And as a result, there's a constant upward pressure on consumer prices and production prices, the costs of production. And this is what has happened. The cost of production has steadily increased in the United States and worldwide. And this put pressure on corporations to outsource labor.
You're
to China.
You're saying that by taking the dollar or taking a currency, unpegging it from something that has a tangible value, in other words, turning it into a fiat currency where it's only as valuable as public confidence or the paper it's written on, literally, is going to push up prices somehow.
Inexorably. Well, look at the curve of inflation from 1913 on. But I'm not against a fiat dollar. Actually, this is another subtle point. Bill Still, in his documentary *The Money Masters*, provided the information I needed to jump off of the gold standard and then onto a sovereign fiat currency for nations. What's needed is a way of curtailing the unbridled creation of credit by banks out of nothing. And I lay this out in this proposed constitutional amendment that I wish people would read. You cannot base a currency on bogus promissory notes to a legally privileged financier class. It does not work.
Well, they seem to be doing that these days because they haven't got any other options. They can't reduce interest rates as a way to stimulate the economy. So they just seem to be trying to buy their way out of trouble.
It's so complicated. I just hope people read that constitutional amendment. All these issues are addressed in there.
Sorry, that's on your site. That's on your site.
Yes.
Let Justice Prevail, though the heavens fall.com. Okay, thank you. And what's it called? That document?
It's just my proposed to hell with fractional reserve banking.
To hell with fractional reserve banking. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay, that is a topic for another day. But are we being led into a war, do you think? Is this a purposeful thing? You mentioned earlier on in the show that it kind of looked like that, the way the rhetoric is from the mainstream media.
Yeah, there's a lot of China bashing going on now.
But
actually,
I
mean, not by the mainstream media. They're
so far as the China state's concerned, surely that is absolutely deserved.
I don't disagree with that. I find communism to be one of the most vile inventions of mankind.
So, but you're concerned that it will lead to war?
Well, yeah, without a doubt. We've given we've given economic power to the Chinese.
Yeah.
And more power to them. They deserve to live. They've done more in 30 years, unbelievably, than in any other epoch in history in terms of wealth creation there. But it's been because a financier class has managed to put us in this position.
Yeah,
and the
that's
financier
right.
class is based totally not on production, but on credit creation out of nothing but promissory notes, bogus promissory notes.
See, Kissinger, who took Nixon over there back in the 60s, was it the late 60s or the early 70s?
The early 70s, I think.
Early 70s that he took Nixon over there. He wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal the other day, which was basically calling for greater globalism at a time when it seems to me and to a lot of people that we actually need more nationalism, that we need to be protecting our cultures, we need to be protecting our people with borders. Trump actually said it a couple of weeks ago that he felt that this pandemic showed that it was pretty clear that we do need borders and we do need controls. And he said, and I think this is the most important thing, we need to be self-reliant, not dependent upon any other state for those things that we depend on, mostly to live and to defend ourselves and so on and so forth. And it just seems to me that that's the problem with globalism, that it has gone way, way too far. Capitalism, absolutely fine, and trading, yeah, completely fine. But globalism is another thing again, where, for example, it's bringing in cheap labor and whatnot, and it destroying local cultures, and invariably is mixed in with war and war profiteering, and then that's used as an excuse for migratory chaos along political ideologies such as that of Kudinha-Kalergi, which is just seems to be to spread chaos and subdue the common man, whilst those at the top get to control us. Divide rule. That seems to be the way that globalism is working, but there is a clamour from the likes of Kissinger for us to keep going along that path, despite the fact that surely what this virus has taught us, if not through knowing for sure where the virus itself came from, through the subsequent cover-up, and the fact that we just cannot trust China as a cooperative partner when it comes to protecting the elders in our families, for example. We seem to be dependent upon this monster. We've created this monster, and don't we need to somehow strive to put it back in its box?
Could we do that another time? Because it's a very complicated topic, because you don't want to put the kibosh on all trade, because that's
no. I agree with that.
You know, so how do you find the balance?
I think Trump is trying to, isn't he? A bit. Go on, Chris.
Yeah.
Go on.
I would say one of the big things is when we look at the globalist issue, the UN, it's almost like they're trying to want to turn the UN into the government for the world, an unelected.
Yes.
And now, I think there is a very valid argument that we need to have some form of agreement between nations of certain things that we will view that are beyond the pale. Some of the issues, issues that things like genocide and some of the really evil things that we have that go on in the world, that we will agree across the board we don't want people to do, and we need some mechanism to deal with countries that do them. But I think that we really need to scale it back massively. I think really almost start again and say, okay, we do not want this global government entity of the UN. All we want to take those little things and have a court system that has judges from different countries, and we sit on it, and we just go, you know what, if a country does X, Y, or Z things, we're gonna have sanctions agreed by the rest of the world that we're gonna sanction this country. But in reality, that's it. In reality, I think the internet could actually be one of our biggest weapons if done right. And by that I mean, if we are independent sovereign nations that are self-reliant, able to wage war if we need to by ourselves, or just by if we need to go to war need allies, we do that by matter of our friendships that we have across the globe, rather than necessarily even treaties like NATO or anything like that. We should really just have it as a more of a looser, we're friends, so we'll back each other up kind of thing. But I think we should really be looking more to be more insular, and if we need expertise from people around the world, rather than steal them through immigration by saying, well, we've got a nicer situation here. Well, why not say, no, that person can help their own country, but if we want to benefit from some of them, we can use so many things. We can even do telehealth. So we don't even need to take doctors. So why not say, okay, well, we're going to have this, we need this doctor's expertise. Well, let them do things by video conferencing and the like. Actually, but rather than taking that person out of a country, then for that country no longer benefits from that person that they've nurtured. And generally just that way we keep countries having their kind of integrity, which means that they end up having shared purpose and shared ideals, meaning that the countries tend to be less fractious like they are nowadays, where you have, well, let's be fair. I have to say nowadays the DNC is an abbreviation for defecate on the nation constitution, but it's gone. We've got such a fractious country in America, in Britain, and those things are caused by actually attacking the very idea of what we are as individual countries. And if anything, by pushing globalism, rather than being a way to prevent wars, it's just trying to create it's going to create one mass. If you create a global state, you're going to create one mass civil war because of all of the fractures and all the disputes and all the differences. Unless you have totalitarianism, and we all know totalitarian states do have a finite end date. Eventually they are overthrown.
Yeah, this is one hell of a big state to overthrow, though, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. Look at Hong Kong. It's just.
I actually think Britain should now actually come out and say with Hong Kong, Taiwan, based on what China's done in relation to Boris. I think the best thing we could do is go to the UN and actually say, we recognize the independent sovereignty of these countries, and we recommend that all other countries recognize their independence over China.
Chris, I completely agree with you, but two things. First of all, if you look at, wanting to wish the very, very best for Boris Johnson, but it seemed to me that the whole reason that they were going for Huawei and that deal, in other words, giving the Chinese a direct man-in-the-middle attack opportunity, rootkit surveillance opportunity, basically easy opportunities to hack the whole Five Eyes, not just the UK, but the whole Five Eyes surveillance system. The whole reason that Boris was willing to do that was because Huawei had bought themselves into the British establishment, for example, as a Tory donor, as a company. And all Chinese companies are subject to the state and have to do the bidding of the state under Chinese law. If they're told to spy, they have to spy. There was absolutely Huawei. It was an awful, appalling, dreadful idea of a deal from A to Z. Even a third of the network, none of the network they should be allowed to have anything to do with. Just doesn't make any sense at all. So that's one of the reasons, and the other reason that's not going to happen apparently for Britain to stand up is because Too many people have bought. Prince Charles, the Prince's Trust, got £500,000 from Huawei, his charity. I mean, even the future king is effectively bought by Huawei, by China. And I mean, maybe not. Maybe it hasn't influenced him in any way, shape or form. But maybe it has. The fact is that Huawei was going forward despite the significant talk against it in the Commons, for example. Some of the folks who were just elected at the last general election. And apart from the UK, this is the case with pretty much all nation states. So-called statesmen have been bought. Parties have been bought. Institutions have been bought. Companies like Huawei have been giving money to colleges in Oxford and Cambridge. They've got their tentacles in everywhere. The Chinese have basically just been strangling the world, and with their bribery, with this cronyism and all the rest of it, and it just seems that there is no chance because of that for people to stand up to China. That's the biggest problem that we have, is this level of corruption, and that is why I wonder how we can possibly actually stand up to Chinese domination, because it seems to me the way things are going, and with the United States particularly being so politically divided, with the deep state apparently so in cahoots with China, basically with traitors in our midst. I don't see how this planet is going to go any way in answer to the question at the top of this show, except towards Chinese dominance. And frankly, it scares the hell out of me in terms of, I mean, personally, I'm pretty philosophical about it. But in terms of the human race, I think it's a disaster.
On that note,
well, I'm going to give this another.
I always say this: a corrupt money corrupts everything it touches. People don't have a sovereign currency anywhere in the world now.
How do we get back from that? We're at the precipice here. It seems to me
it has to do with the manner in which money is created via signatures on promissory notes to a financier class.
I'm not sure that anything is going to change until there is a change of attitude, Dennis. I'm not convinced that the money or the financial system, the system of tokens of trade, is so much the issue as for mankind to say, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with nasty people anymore. And if there's somebody over there who, is like in the playground, he's a bully, and he won't have any reasonable debate, i.e. no elections. He won't discuss things civilly. Just, you have to say, I'm not going to have anything to do with you, or scale it back. The problem is that they've got nukes, and they're very possibly more powerful nukes than any other nukes on the planet now. So it's, I'm not sure that there's a way around it.
Yeah, you may be right.
But I was really hoping that somebody would
require a spiritual rethinking of things.
I was really hoping that somebody would would counter that. I was really, really, really hoping that somebody would counter that. Chris?
Yeah.
The only glimmer of light I'm seeing financially is that the Fed no longer is an independent entity. Well, we say independent entity, i.e., it's actually now has been taken under the Department of the Treasury, which means it's actually been brought into the government rather than being separate from. And people, are suggesting that this might actually be the effective removal of America from the central banking system in doing this.
But you understand that most of the money is created by commercial banks, not the Federal Reserve.
Yes, I know. But then you have the issue is also the stranglehold. The central banking system obviously has nothing to do with any of the a central bank of a country doesn't actually have anything to do with that country. It has to do with individuals behind it, and as such, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and it's owned by private individuals, not by the country. Now, if you've got a entity separate from a country printing the financial tender for that country, and the country has no control over that, effectively, if you don't have control over your own money, do you have, much like if you don't have control over your own borders or your control over your own military, you don't have a country.
That's exactly right.
So a fundamental thing that needed to happen, needs to happen for countries is that the central banking system needs to be collapsed. Now, with the market downturn that has happened as a result of COVID-19, it and the Fed coming under the Treasury as part of that does appear that looks like it might be taking back control of a country's banking system through as a when it's possible to do so, because if you're going to collapse the central banking system, you can't really do it when it's at its peak, because you're not going to have the support of the people, because all of their money that's tied into it, their 401ks and all of these, which is all based on fake assets. These people are not going to be happy about losing value in their homes, losing value in their pensions, etc., etc. And I'm going to riot against you if you do this when the market's high and you completely change the system. You have to do it when the market's destroyed, which would potentially be an argument as to why this president is actually allowing us to be kept home, and an economy that is so reliant on people going out to work. The only benefit I can say to conceive for having a second depression, which is what we're potentially facing, not a recession but a depression, is that if you're basically going to change the banking system in such a way that we're no longer held as slaves by the elites behind the current system. But that's just my my opinion on the economics of it.
Let me get this right, Chris. What exactly has President Trump done so far then? Is it correct to say that he has taken Federal Reserve control underneath into the remit of the U.S. Treasury now?
It's
No,
it's now under the Department of the Treasury. Yes.
no, I don't agree with that.
No, that is one of the things that was announced. That has happened. The Fed is no longer independent anymore.
And yet, the mechanism still remains in place that in order for currency to be created, the Federal Reserve must purchase Treasury bills, or it could purchase armchairs for that matter. That's how the base money is injected into the current system, and that hasn't changed. So I don't understand when people say that the Treasury has been taking control of the Federal Reserve. They're still exchanging these notes these fake notes. Fed
think
writes
it may
a check.
That's right.
I think this is a first stage,
Okay.
more than an end result. I don't say that. I'm not saying it is a done thing. What I'm saying is the first thing you'd have to do is remove the full autonomy of the Fed, which by putting
By
it
the way,
under the Department of the Treasury is
that's what my constitutional amendment proposes.
Yeah. So it's now under the Department of the Treasury. So but I would say it would have to be a step by step rather than because you would have to effectively also repeal the Federal Reserve Act.
Yes, exactly.
And
you'd have to still devise a way in which present financial contracts are still honored. Otherwise, the whole system collapses.
Yeah, unless you actually make use of the fact that we're in a system collapse at the moment, effectively through a depression, and you can then avoid having to remake the system in effect in the same way based on promissory notes still, but under different control. Because I would actually say that the fiat currency, it lends itself that it's under the control of bad people.
Yeah.
Now the fact that you need to get the system in of itself is going to be a corrupting system because of how it works.
Yes.
So actually, and because it's not backed by anything tangible. Now, so and the way a system works is it will eventually go into a system like China's trying to do, where your financial well-being is based on how good a citizen you are, which is probably an end goal system. I would say you would have to move it back to a gold standard. You would have to devalue things and just explain to people you've not lost anything in value. Your millions that you
Chris,
had maybe aren't millions now. But effectively, your ratio-wise, you're still as rich as you were.
Setting aside this huge discussion, I just want to get to the guts of this, because I've heard this from a few people who have said the US Treasury has taken back overall control of the Federal Reserve, and yet the Federal Reserve is
that's simply not true.
As Dennis points out, just let me finish. As Dennis points out, I think continuing to print money, $1 trillion a day or something crazy, and bailing out banks or staff so that they can lend to business is the idea, or something like that. And so the U.S. Treasury hasn't taken it back. Plus, it seems to me as well. Plus, also, damned if I could find a single news story about this anywhere. Where are you getting the information that the U.S. Treasury, that Trump has basically
announced by Steve
given the reins to the U.S. Treasury?
It was announced by the Secretary of State for the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin,
Well, that's
live on
pretty-
TV.
But what does it mean? That's what I'm wondering what he means by that. You see, you can't just, you have to rescind the Federal Reserve Act itself. You know, listen, Ollie, would it be possible sometime to just have me on and just go over paragraph by paragraph, the 7 paragraphs of my proposed amendment?
Yes.
Because it's a very deep topic, and I could be mistaken too. I mean, I'm just a layperson who's just trying to strike at the root. You know,
if anybody has got a link for Stephen Mnuchin's what he said or what have you, or if you have, Chris, please bung it my way, and I will discuss that over the next couple of days on Daily Chaos. I just want to leave by making a little quote, which is probably well known to folks here, from Mayor Rothschild: "Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws."
Exactly.
So yeah. I just close with a news story in the Express today, something pretty pertinent to what we're talking about. Dominic Raab, who is currently the acting Prime Minister in the UK, says fighter Boris Johnson will pull through. In health update, Dominic Raab updated the public on Boris Johnson's health after the Prime Minister was admitted to intensive care last night after suffering from persistent coronavirus symptoms. Dominic Raab wished Boris Johnson all the best as Foreign Secretary has taken on his role while the Prime Minister recovers. Mr. Raab said he is confident Mr. Johnson will pull through. Let's hope so. I want to say a big cheers to Dennis Spain and Chris Boosey. God bless you both. Thank you very much indeed for coming on today. And,
Thank you, Ollie.
Being depressed with me. And you, Dennis. Yeah, ASMR. Yeah. Yeah, there you go, mate. You've got to check it out now. Check out relaxing ASMR. I love relaxing ASMR. That guy, he's so cool. He's superb. And to everybody in the comments, God bless you. Yeah, here's to us. Yeah, and bugger the bug. Sorry, you know what? I'm feeling a bit depressed today. I'll be honest with you. You know, it's the way it is with this thing, isn't it? It's the way it is. You know, you're gonna have up days and down days, and it's yeah. How, Dennis? You said it before the show. You're feeling a bit.
I am. Yeah, it's the flood of information is so great. It's hard to sort things out. We do our best, you know, and based on.
Got to do better, mate. I've got to try and work out a way to get more laughs on this show. Maybe more silly videos.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Honestly, what's wrong with the reality?
Well,
it's not reality. It destroys us. It's unreality.
Dennis Spain, Chris Boosey, God bless you. I'll talk to you again very, very soon.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Ciao.